So, good morning or afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Data Visual, welcome to the Common Collaboration Pain Points and Surprising Ways to Solve Them webinar presented by Mersive. I'd like to introduce to you our panelists for today, Yul Carroll, Technologies Executive VP of Global Sales, and John Reyes, VP of Technical Services, who will be guiding us through today's presentation. Before we start, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will have a full Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So Joel and John, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nikki. It's good having you all here. Some names I definitely recognize, and John may as well. But we look forward to going through a discussion on behalf of Mersive and talking through things. First thing I want to throw out is John and I both are, very familiar with a lot of the work that Data Visual has done with us, and we're really appreciative of them taking us on. And now they are our exclusive distributor up in Canada. So if you guys have any questions as we go throughout the presentation, it gets beyond this, questions about pricing or specific feature things that you would like to learn more about, you can definitely reach out to Data Visual directly at leads@datavisual.ca or sales support at datavisual.ca. And we also have Brian Hatchie, who also supports Mersive up in the Canadian region by being, again, our exclusive rep that works directly along with Data Visual. So his contact here as well for those of you who don't know him, but another good person for you to connect with. Now, John and I myself, we both work for Mersive directly. And again, I'm EVP of Global Sales for Mersive. John, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm John Reyes. I'm our head of technical services. So I head our field-based solution engineering teams doing some pre and post-sale technical work with our product.
Yeah, so as we get started today, I know it's a little bit smaller group, so what we'll do is we'll open it up for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions in the meantime, please go ahead and make sure that you do put them into the Q&A tab like we had talked about. If by chance we don't get to one of those questions during this time period that we have today, we will ensure myself, John, Brian, as well as Data Visual, will all reach out to you and make sure that you get any of those questions answered. So don't worry about it. If we don't get to it, we'll definitely bring it up. We also have somebody else on our team watching those questions as well to ensure that if John and I miss something, that she's able to get that out there as well. Her name's Skylar, and you currently see her on there as Mersive. For those of you who aren't familiar with Mersive, we're going to really highlight solutions as it goes around two of our products that we currently have available today. One of them is going to be Mersive Solstice. The other one we'll talk a little bit about is going to be Mersive Element or Solstice Element. What we're going to do during this webinar is we're not just going to go over just a lot of the features and specifications of the product. The goal is to help you guys understand different places of where this product can be used and how you can deploy this in some of your applications. Now, John, before we jump in too far, can you kind of explain what the difference is and what Solstice is, and then what Solstice Element is to the team that's here today?
Sure. So Solstice at a high level is a network attached appliance, which is important, and we'll touch on that throughout the webinar, that enables better meeting outcomes through wireless sharing technology. So, how do we do that? We do that by allowing any device to get into a meeting and then giving the users the ability to kind of control content and do a little bit more than you would do with just the cable or some other of the wireless presentation products that are out there. Solstice we've had on the market for quite a while now. Element is relatively newer. Element at its core has the same functionality as Solstice, but at a cheaper price point. So we've reduced some of the feature set a little bit. You still get all the sharing and the content collaboration, but it allows you to acquire that at a cheaper price point.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And in Solstice, a lot of you are aware maybe how Mersive has sold in the past. And we've got a maintenance or subscription plan that's available for Mersive Solstice. Solstice Element, again, lower cost option that's built for the rooms where those types of things, where additional features or updates to the software and so forth aren't going to be as important. So the sharing experience is the same. And what our goal has been doing as we're building this product and into the future as we build more products, it gives you an option to utilize Mersive product in any type of spaces within your organization or institution, regardless of the room size. When you look currently at what Mersive has to offer, specifically right now with the Solstice product, what we've been able to do across this entire few years that we've been doing this now is provide a way for people to seamlessly share content in the way that they want to. One of the things that were important to us, and John and I do a lot of meetings together and we discuss this, is when somebody goes to share, certain people want to be able to share content from their device in their own way. I'm an Apple guy, therefore, obviously, that means I want to use AirPlay. Other people are Windows people, so they're going to want to use things like Miracast. And then you're going to look at people that want to have that same experience when they walk into the room, regardless of what device they bring in. So, giving somebody the ability to share content in the way that's most comfortable for them empowers that user. Also, what it does is it empowers the tech support team to provide a multitude of options to people to ensure that they can just walk in and seamlessly connect. So share.mersive.com is a new thing that we introduced about 2 years ago, where from any type of operating system that you're utilizing on a computer or laptop, you could go to share.mersive.com and then share that way through a web browser, which again simplifies things because you don't have to go and download any sort of software to your laptop and so forth. The other thing, as I started talking about the benefits to that, is what starts to happen when everybody gets all these devices on the network is ensuring that we've got the ability to be able to go in and monitor those things. So we've got a very extensive cloud platform that will allow you to understand how often people are connecting, what type of devices are they connecting with, and to some extent, the type of content that they're also sharing. Another nice thing about that being a benefit, and we'll go into more of this later, also has to do with some security benefits of you being able to manage your entire fleet from that single pane of glass. Now, with Solstice, as Ray has talked about a moment ago, Solstice starts out as that traditional sharing application that people want to be able to get content up on the display. But one of the things that we do bring that really provides power to the market is the ability for us to be able to take that device and that software and expand upon it. And active learning is one of those examples that we're able to do that. Raises, can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so active learning, and I know we have a number of higher education or universities and facilities on the line here, but what active learning does is supports kind of a newer pedagogy within education that allows people to learn as a team, right? So if I'm the instructor in front of the room, I can throw out a problem, students can work on it creatively as a team, and then they can then present that content either to the instructor or to the whole room. Traditionally, active learning systems were done with wires and cabling. We did add the functionality a while back to be able to do all of this wirelessly. So basically taking our core functionality, which as Joel indicated, is getting content from any device on a screen, and then being able to link those devices in a room so the instructor has the power and the capability to basically route that wherever they want. The nice thing about it is, when you're using it, we have a number of ways that we can implement it in the classroom. We have iPad applications and Windows applications that allow instructors to control kind of the flow of the classroom session, or you can integrate it in with Extron, Crestron controllers and leverage some equipment that might already be in the room. So very nice way to engage your student base, both with wireless presentation and then giving the instructors the ability to kind of take that to the next level.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of different applications where we've seen this. We've actually got a corporate installation specifically with active learning where they actually have 50 user stations, and each user station has a pod there where they're able to do the routing. And that user station is literally for an individual. So it allows the instructor to sit in front of the room and take whatever content's in front of the room and push it directly to the display, sitting right in front of those students as they're learning. Kind of a neat application that was brought to Raises and I want to say about 3 years ago is when we started working on that, and it's been deployed over the last couple of years. So there are different ways to look at active learning. Look at it as an active routing or an AV over IP scenarios. We look through some of that. Now, when we start looking at some of the pain points, some of the things that we want to talk about with Mersive are, in this case, what are some of the most common pitfalls for organizations when it comes to implementing new AV systems? Raises, I'm going to pitch this to you, but I'm going to give you, a little lead into this. Typically, what I'm seeing is when people are, trying to design a new AV system, the first thing that they start to look at is going to be cost. And then cost then starts to take prevalence over like the usability and the security of those solutions. So why while cost is important, why should we also be looking at usability and security when we're making a decision as to what products we're putting into the system?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we see it quite a bit, particularly for any of our channel partners that are on the line here. Wireless presentation sometimes gets thrown on as a line item, right? We're not the most expensive thing in a room a lot of the times if you're doing a new build out. So it gets tacked on, and that's basically it. It gets kind of forgotten about. To your point, though, Joel, I think, when you think about it from a cost perspective, sure, it could be a small part of the room, but I think the reach of the product is really where some people don't really grasp kind of the whole concept of what it's going to do. And by that, I mean, every single person that comes into that room is going to leverage the technology. So, without thinking about like the UX, how does it work? Are users going to like it? I think that can be a struggle. In addition to training people on, how to use the technology out there. So it's not just, we're throwing this box in a room and we're going to call it good. I mean, you have to think about the scope of all the different people from all the different departments that are going to walk in there. Some are going to be probably a little less technologically advanced, I guess, as some other users. So, throwing all this tech out there is something that definitely needs to be thought about, I think, before you go through and do a deployment for sure.
Yeah, and look, I'll tee you up for later when we talk about one of our use cases, but just beyond the UX of that initial product itself, the entire user experience, like when we design AV
Yeah.
systems, it's an entire user experience. From the minute I leave my office, walk down the hall, and walk into that room, what is that a user experience that's going to follow me? So when I walk into that space, some of the things that I also like to understand better, how are you using the room? How are the connections going to work? Because the ability to have a very strong API is also going to give you that capability to be able to implement a better workflow for that specific industry or that specific customer. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we talk about WeWork, just kind of a hint to what we'll talk about later. But that's been one of the key things that I think a lot of people overlook is how do I communicate with the device? The device does one thing, but the overall user experience of the space, I think, is a lot of times is maybe overlooked in some of those scenarios. So another thing to look at is a simple way to avoid some major AV issues down the road. And this one's interesting to me because there's a couple of issues that I hear often. One of them has to do with scalability, and the other one truly has to do with, user adoption. How do I ensure people walk in and connect to that system and be able to share to that system? Because otherwise, if you put a system together and people aren't using anything, the ROI automatically starts to drop. Um, Now raises from, let's talk about this in two parts, actually. Let's first talk about user adoption. From a user adoption standpoint, how can we avoid an issue down the road where people aren't going to utilize the system? What are some of the key things that you've run into?
Yeah, I think it's making it clear when a user walks in the room, what do they do, right? That, a meeting
Mm,
can already be a stressful time. You might have to present to colleagues. And the last thing you want to have to do is mess around with, the technology in the room. Leveraging things like our welcome screen and digital signage, which we'll touch on here, is a great way to kind of smooth that on ramp to getting into the technology. So you can just get in there. You don't have to worry about the actual technology. You can worry about your presentation and what you need to deliver.
yeah, and from that, then how do we then scale those types of things? So we'll talk a little bit more about cloud, and I saw a question did come up, so I don't want to ignore that. We'll bring that up to you guys. But from the scalability standpoint, a lot of times people design just that one space, and they look at the next space, and they look at the next space. Where has that been a pitfall when people are going and designing and deploying rooms at scale? It's not one, it's 10, 20, 50, 1,000 at a time.
Yeah. So a lot of it really depends on the organization, right? And sometimes purchasing decisions are made independently, particularly in higher education. Your engineering school could be functioning under this umbrella, and then you have other schools that are doing something different. And you start getting pods in a specific organization, and people tend to like the technology, right? We've seen a ton. We call
Mhm.
it land and expand, where we sell maybe 5 to 10 units in to either a education space or a corporate environment. users start using the tech, they really like it, and then they start expanding and throwing it into more rooms, campus or site wide. And to Joel's point, I mean, you need to really have a clean way to get those new areas outfitted with pods and equipped, quickly, so you don't have to spend all your time managing that whole transition. It's a quick and easy process to just deploy new units, so users can take advantage of the technology.
Yeah, look, Reyes, I know we asked what is one simple way to avoid major AV issues down the road, and we've talked to. I'm going to throw you a curveball here, actually. We hear a lot about security and what that means in the AV world. And this is not new to AV, but it's also something that's becoming much more prevalent as we're putting more and more of these devices on the network. There's been a lot of discussions over the years that I've been involved in, where the first thing is when you talk to IT, and rightly so, it's the not on my network type concept, right? You can build your own
Yeah.
network to be able to do that control, but now I don't want it on the larger scale IT network. Um, Touch on things a little bit. What should people look at?
Yeah.
And we've got some security, right? Well, we've got, SOC 2 type compliances.
Yeah.
Why is that key to ensure that you don't have issues down the road?
Yeah, a number of different answers to that question, but network security is at the forefront these days for anything on the network. I mean, anybody that follows computer news or even general news, you've heard about a hack, here or there, and people getting sensitive information. And I think historically, when some people look at AV products, they figure, okay, that's not really that secure, or let me throw that in its own separate little network segment, so it can't really interface with everything else. And we're taking the exact opposite approach. We're saying, hey, we are a network attached appliance, absolutely, but based on all the things that we've done to make this product rock solid and secure, throw it on your corporate network, throw it on your existing network with all your other devices, because it gets you, one, it's easier for your users to find it and get access to it, but two, uh, it's easier to have third party integrations and things like that if it's able to talk to the general
Mhm.
broader network. So when people come in a room and they're sharing a spreadsheet, and it could be the HR department showing all the salaries for all your employees up there, you really want to be sure that that data is not going to go anywhere, either after that meeting or at any point in the future. And so through some of the steps we've taken, we've really made the product pretty rock solid in that regard.
No, and security is key from us. You're going to see a lot more information coming out about that. Actually, there's a webinar next week I'm going to be doing with Dave Hatz talking about security. And security, I think, is key. And for us in AV, a lot of times a much overlooked discussion when we're talking about beyond just putting on the network. What does true security mean? Raises, we've gotten a few questions come in, so I'm going to take a quick second to make sure we can address a few of these. One of the first questions that popped in talks about Solstice Cloud, and it says, I really like Solstice Cloud, but why can't I see which pods are actively in use?
Yeah, good question. And product feature request noted. So I think if you aren't familiar with Solstice Cloud is a powerful tool. We have a lot of analytics in there that show you kind of the usage of the pods. But I think, Trey, if this is what you're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the ability to see like kind of like in use in that current moment. For those that are familiar with our dashboard product, which is kind of our legacy management system, right when you log in there, you can kind of see red, green, you get an idea of what's in use and what's not. So cloud does give you the ability to kind of see what's out there and how people are using it over time. But I think the ask is, how about more of a kind of a I log in and I see that information right away. It's a great idea, and it's something we can take to our product folks. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing to throw out too, and you and I can both tag team this a little bit here. What's the difference between Element and Solstice? Can you speak a little bit to that, and then I'll throw some
Yeah.
color commentary.
Yeah, so Element's kind of it's solstice, but I like to describe it as frozen in time, right? So what we do is we have a version on there that we've tested. We've made sure that everything, is on there is running correctly, and basically it doesn't really update. Now, when I say it doesn't update, I'm talking about feature updates. Obviously, if there was anything on the security front, we just kind of touched on that a little bit. That's ultra important, so we would certainly push those out. But basically, it's what you see is what you get at that point in time. So you still get all the sharing capabilities, But any sort of like new features or anything like that that we may release in the future, you wouldn't really be able to leverage those. That said, if the product has everything in it that you're looking for today, then great. You're good to go, and you can acquire that technology at a maybe a more palatable price point than standard Solstice.
Yeah, and it's the other thing to look at too has to do with warranty. Solstice
Yeah.
itself, if you look at the different options we have, we introduced this last year. As long as that product has an active subscription to it, it's going to stay under warranty. So even if you had a subscription for 2 years, you decided to wait and you come back another year, we're going to re-give you that warranty, even if there's a gap in the middle. With the Element product, the Element has a 3-year warranty. There's no way to expand the warranty on that because of just the way that we built that architecture. I did see Aaron ask a question here, and it's a very good question. You know, what's the difference in the hardware? And there is no difference in the hardware. The hardware is the same piece of hardware that we've always utilized. It is literally the same exact product from the hardware standpoint. It's just what software we're running on it. In cloud as well, there'll be lesser capabilities with Element, so you can do the updates. You can do the management. You can go in and apply templates. But what you wouldn't then have ability to do is things like the updates, like Ray just mentioned, nor would you get some of the things such as the analytics in the other portion. So if you're looking for something that's a really good sharing device, and that is the main thing you want, maybe a lunchroom or something along those lines, that's where Element would work. Again, same user experience. So again, the goal is to ensure that you've got an option that would work not only in your larger facilities, but in your smaller facilities as well. So good
Yeah.
questions. I appreciate you guys asking. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and you can mix and match as well. So if you have rooms where you want, all those people hopping in on a session at the same time, great. You can throw a standard pod in there. But to Joel's point, if you have like huddle spaces or maybe areas where it's only going to be like one person presenting one thing at a time, Element can be a great fit in those places as well.
Absolutely. So, Rachel, let's go and talk about some of the applications that we have out there and where people have been using Mersive and Solstice specifically. And we're going to highlight two different options. One of it is going to be more of a corporate environment. The other one's going to be specifically to higher ed. So, you guys may have seen some of these case studies that we've talked about, and you probably have heard of WeWork. Where you've got the ability to walk in and rent a room and have a meeting pretty much anywhere across the globe. And WeWork is a great customer because we've worked with them a lot to try to, develop some of our features directly to what they need. And that's a good thing to mention. As Reza said earlier, that's a good feature request. It's important for us to get that feedback from the customers that are using the product because we do drive a lot of our development based on the feedback we get from the field. We'll talk about digital signage here and how we did that here for WeWork. But if anybody's been to a WeWork, it's pretty awesome. You walk in, you book a space through their app. When you walk in through the API communication, they actually have the ability of changing the digital signage up on the room to let you know that that room is now booked. And I can walk in and I can use what essentially is share.mersive.com in order to share content directly from my laptop or desktop, whatever I might be carrying in. Raise this, hopefully they're not carrying in desktops, quite frankly, but you never know.
You never know.
You
Never
never
know.
know. They might be walking around with those. Um, Now, one of the big things for them is they had to get away from the HDMI cable. It was creating a lot of challenges for them. And that's why they started working with us initially, back in 2017. And this is spread to 500 different spaces in total over the years, 15,000 different devices that they've ended up utilizing. Um, in this scenario, Ray, just talk a little bit through some of the customization that happened to ensure when people walk in, they know how to connect and how this could be utilized other places.
Yeah, and this goes back to again, we're attached to the network, so we can talk to all these third-party systems using our API. So they've actually done quite a bit with both sensors, so like aux sensors when somebody walks in the room, being able to take that data and then key off of it, and then we can also do some special things on the back end with that. But then also just their welcome screen in general. That thing is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting. I think it integrates with 3 or 4 different systems. So they have a custom calendaring solution. User gets on the app, they want to book a space, goes through all their cloud systems that they have bounces back down to the pod, and then we're actually able to dynamically take that data and then switch the front of what the user is actually looking at through our digital signage to reflect either things are booked or not booked, and to allow them to kind of get their space, get in there, and get what they need to get done quickly and easily by talking with those third parties.
And I've got to use this space and, just in general, there are a lot of times I go into a city and I'll rent a small room for, two or three of us who might be traveling and connect. And that's been a really easy workflow. And what's cool is that, you get to talk to some of the people that are using the spaces. And what's been one of the most important things for them is just the ease of them being able to connect to the display simply and easily. And that's where that share.mersive.com has been pretty powerful for them. They walk in, they go to an IP address that WeWork provides. They type in the key and they can start sharing using Safari, Chrome, and a couple other browsers that are out there. But for the most part, they're utilizing it with Safari and Chrome. Now we're in a multitude of size spaces, anywhere from like a 2 or 3 seat type of scenario, all the way up into a larger scenario where you might have 15, 20 people in a room. Just recently, they disabled all the HDMI cables in the room to force people to go in and utilize the technology. And the reason they were doing that is they had too many people coming in, trying to connect. And believe it or not, they were having more problems supporting people trying to connect the HDMI cable than they were trying to get things to work in a scenario where they were doing wireless sharing. Now, one of the benefits on why we've worked well here is because they didn't have to install our app. We do have an app, it's very powerful, but they didn't have to install our app in this scenario. And as you guys may know, as people walk into an environment, they may not have administrative rights on their laptop to be able to install anything. And what we're also finding, and raises this is kind of a security scenario here. What we're also finding is a lot of companies and institutions even are turning off the USB ports on their laptop. So then that required a solution that would be able to do things in some of the native wireless architecture that's out there. Uh, why would that be an issue here at WeWork, raises if they can't use the USB ports on their laptops?
Yeah, so I mean, when you think about it, there's all kinds of dongles that do all kinds of different things, right? Some of them allow you to share, maybe it's like a puck device so you can do audio in there. So not being able to leverage some of the maybe some like native technologies that users are used to can be a little bit of a challenge. So with them in particular, it was important to come up with a way where no matter what kind of device you have, you're still able to connect and utilize the space because you are paying for it. You want to make sure that the users are getting what they need out of that session.
Cool. Let's move on to another session here, and we have some more questions coming. We'll hit those in a second. But George Mason University, and this was kind of a unique use case. They built a brand new building, and their whole goal was to find ways to work with the students and help them improve their learning outcomes. You heard me talk a minute ago, allow people to share in the way they want to share, but this also to me is a lot of times allow people to learn in the way that they want to learn. And I think that's a key thing is when you're in an educational institution, we all learn slightly different. We all have our own devices. We all teach slightly different. And that was important to them to be able to take those rooms, simplify the utilization, and ensure that the students could walk in and just start putting content up on the display. In this scenario, they have a substantial number of Solstice pods that they utilize, 165 pods in total across 28 classrooms, 15 collaboration spaces, 9 conference rooms, huddle spaces. So when you look at that number, 165 pods in a single building in an educational institution, you can obviously see here they were doing something a little bit different. Raises from the active learning standpoint,
Yeah,
there was 165 pods here, and they're only showing 28 classrooms. What does that look
yeah.
like then? Because that's really the collaboration spaces where most of these pods were deployed.
Yeah, and I think when we first started talking to him, I mean, one of the concerns was and I think you mentioned it on the slide before, 30% of those were going to be in active learning spaces. I mean, usually when we do active learning deployments, some places might, test it out in 1 or 2 or 3 different spaces, but it's not really as widely deployed as that. The second challenge was everything had to be on the network, right? So they wanted to route all this new AV gear they're putting through the existing network, which is its own set of challenges. But leveraging Solstice's active learning, we were able to kind of help them out with both. One, yep, we can certainly outfit those rooms pretty quickly and easily. And then two, we can all tie it back to your network so you can do whatever you need to do with third-party management using our cloud platform, et cetera. So it was a challenging deployment, I think, from the back end, from the IT perspective. But using Solstice, I think, really kind of fit in that mold of what they were looking for and allowed them to do it a little quicker and easier than they would have with maybe a traditional hardwired system.
Yeah, and that was pretty slick scenario here because everything had to be on the network. And as you can see in the image, the chairs weren't locked down. They were able to move around to a lot of specific spaces. So an instructor could come in and then set that room up specific to how they want to use that space. Now, John, I already talked a bit about security. I'm going to throw it
Mhm.
back here again
Yeah, yeah.
in this type of scenario, right? You've got a lot of students, you've got student data that people, we've heard the different stories. Different schools have had some challenges here and there that people are trying to ensure student data doesn't get leaked. I mean, there's all these things that we have to be worried about from a network
Mhm.
security standpoint. In this scenario for George Mason, what did we have to worry about there? Why was this a concern for them specifically?
Yeah, good question. So we talked about the requirement that everything needed to be on the network. So, kind of hand in hand with that is everything needs to be secure, right? Just being on the network, quote unquote, isn't going to be enough. You still need to be able to satisfy all the security requirements that are involved with the project. With education spaces, it's a little bit different, right? If I walk into a corporate environment, generally there's a corporate network. You're not ever going to get on it. They might have a guest network. You get on that, and then you go from there. I think for my IT brethren that are in the educational space, they have a unique challenge, and that a lot of the times it's bring your own device, right? It's bring whatever you can from home, bring it onto our network, and then we'll figure it out from there. So it's almost like the opposite approach where you're not keeping people off the network, you're inviting them into the space. How do you still do that while still being secure? And so I think they heavily vetted us from a security perspective, not only for the content itself, right? We don't want what a user is sharing to be able to get out, but also like that device cannot be a attack vector for a third party, right? They're able to compromise the device in some way, and now they have access to the broader network. So
Yeah.
I think our security played a key role in being able to help them achieve what it was that they were after.
And it's like I think that some of the things that you've heard me say, John, and I say it more from a sales aspect, right? But if we can't create something that's going to be secure, we're just not going to deploy it. We're not going to put it in the
Yeah.
product. It's not going to be in our portfolio, no matter how cool or how beneficial that feature may be. Security really has to be, on the forefront with us, and that helped us here. And usually, when Raises was talking about all these things about how we're secure or the things that we pay attention to, there are a lot of times that our sales engineering team, works along with the specific IT team at those institutions, corporations, for them to be able to vet the product. We give them a product, they have the opportunity to do their own vetting and testing. We fill out security questionnaires. If people need to in the right environments, we can give them some of the security data as long as we've got an NDA signed between the organizations to ensure people understand what we're doing and why it really is key for
Yeah.
security with the type of devices that we're doing. Because again, they're sitting on the network, so it's an interesting thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and why that's important, we want to take security out of the equation, right? When you're looking and evaluating a new product, it's hard enough to find one that fits what you actually want it to do. And then once you do find that product, then you've got, all the security mumbo jumbo behind that and the hoops you need to jump through to get that on the network. So, what we want to say, throughout the process or the customer journey is, look, if you're interested in this technology, don't worry about the security piece. We've got that. We've got all these certifications that we've done. We've got a lot of data that we can give your IT folks. So let's focus on, what the product is and what it does, and then go from there. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's mumbo jumbo. Is that a technical term?
it is. It is.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It
I
is.
will we'll define that at a later date with another meeting. We got a question from Britt. In the George Mason example, what was the difference between collaborative space and huddle space? in their specific example, collaborative space, those were those active learning rooms like what you're seeing here. Huddle space for them would have been more of a small meeting type area, small meeting room where, you may have 4 to 6 people that might be in a meeting area at any given time. So think, library type rooms, things along those lines. But it would be places where students could still get together and meet amongst themselves. So yeah, I think thanks for asking that one, Britt.
Yeah. And
Uh,
then the classrooms were just the standard one, pod in the front of the room type thing. No active learning.
Yeah, and the one thing that was key in this specific room that in this type of scenario is no matter where somebody went, they were able to share the way they were sharing in any other space in this building. So there's a lot of tools that people talk to us about where they walk into some of these environments and they're kind of locked into that architecture because those tools are hard coded and part of that solution that's in these spaces. Um, we could have gone that route, but we chose to allow you to use the tools that you want to use, like your office tools or Google tools or whatever the case may be. And then students then can utilize that and also easily get content up on displays. So they went this route because it does open up a lot more flexibility. When they walk from one space to the next, the sharing, it's the same. The only major difference then when you get into larger spaces is the instructor's ability to take that content from one of the student stations and then route it throughout the rest of the space. But again, anywhere they walk in that building, they can share and have that same user experience, one thing after the other. Now, Raises, talking about a couple more things here, is in the world of digital signage, I think a lot of people they almost forget that digital signage, the importance of digital signage. I know when I walk into a room and I see something up on a screen, if there's nothing up there, meeting's kind of quiet. I actually think digital signage also adds to the collaborative nature of those spaces. A blank screen is kind of a lost opportunity. And when you walk in and you see
Yeah.
something, and maybe we're seeing like the schedule. We just had our sales kickoff last week, right? And we'd walk in and we see what the schedule is, and you go, hey, you're gonna go tonight, how you're gonna get to the event after, the meeting's over. It starts that communication for people right then and there. With the digital signage as well, some of the things people ask us about then is how do I ensure that that display isn't always burning 24/7? How do I turn that on? Do we have a way that we can manage that and solve for that?
Yeah, good question. So a couple things here. I mean, one, for those that have known Solstice for a while, when we first released the product, I think we had a welcome screen. I'm not quite sure what it was. I think it was some intergalactic theme, and you really couldn't do a whole lot with it. And we learned very fast that, users were like, yeah, this is a great product, but now, you guys need to do something to allow us to kind of brand that and make this fit into our environment a little bit better. So we've come a long way since then. And digital signage is definitely one of the newer ways that you can kind of customize it and make the space your own. Full motion video, as Joel indicated, you can use it for, a multitude of different uses. Scheduling, you can just use it for branding, you can use it for what's happening, in the campus. So
Mhm.
a lot of cool use cases when nobody's using the product, right? In traditional corporate environments, glass walled conference rooms or all the rage. So having him do a little bit more or be a little bit more interesting than just some static screen up there, I think is important. The second thing you mentioned was the power savings, right? So it's great that these displays are doing something, but what about when it's time to go home for the day? And we have a number of different options there where we can put things on timers, we can schedule off cycles, so you're not, as Joel indicated, burning your displays 24/7. We had a unique deployment at an oil and gas facility that's just nothing but a huge glass building. The CEO was driving away for the night. I guess he had some late meetings, and he looked back at the facility, and you could see every single one of our displays was on, which caused quite a bit of commotion the next day. And quick and easy problem to solve. They just had not set the scheduling for it. But with lead certification and everything going on these days, with trying to be environmentally friendly, it's important to be able to fit that requirement as well.
Awesome. Well, a couple more things here. Just so you guys know, we're coming up to the end of our time. So if there's any questions you want to ask, please throw them into the QA section. Race, I'll talk about a couple more things here. But if there's questions you guys want to get in, please get them in now, and we'll be able to continue to answer some of these questions after we're done. Uh, we talked a little bit about this earlier, Raises, and we talked about cloud. One of the things that I have found with cloud, and I've already told people I'm a Mac person, and anybody that knows me knows I am an Apple person through and through. Everything I have revolves around Apple because it all just connects, it all just works. Please don't ask me questions on how because it just does, guys. But the idea to me is when we came out with cloud, one of the benefits I had is that pane of glass I could see through any device. So regardless of what type of architecture that you use, whether it be Windows or whether it be Mac, it doesn't matter. I could look at it from my phone. I could see my entire infrastructure. I could be able to go in and control all my devices and manage that. I think one of the things we don't really talk about nearly as much as we should is how does cloud actually give us the ability to scale? So if we go out and somebody asked earlier, can I get a demo of a product? And we send you out a demo unit and you be able to test it once you get it set up on your network. The next challenge is how do I do that at scale? Raises, how could you do that? We've got the network stuff done, all right? We went through the security. Somebody wants to move forward, and now they buy, let's say, 25 units. Do I have to touch every one of those individually, or what can I do utilizing cloud to ensure that we can simplify that size of a deployment?
Yeah, good question. I think it comes down to a few key things that cloud does really well. And one is the use of templates. So, we've talked about some of the features, digital signage and some of the, Miracast, AirPlay, et cetera. There's a lot of, kind of switches and knobs and dials you can turn with Solstice. Generally, what I see at least, most people want it set up in one specific way, maybe two or three specific ways based on where the pods are going, maybe to a different department. But templates give you a way to quickly and easily achieve that. So what a template is, I go in there, I set up how I want a pod to look and feel of it, the feature set that I'm looking for, and then I save that. As I get new units or new pod units that are coming into the facility, I can quickly and easily just push that template, and then you're good to go. So then the pod is up, you're ready to use it without having to your point, visit every single one of those rooms to make sure the settings are where they need to be. And then again, back to the security thing, one of the requirements for security is standardization, right? It's making sure like I've vetted these particular features and I've made sure that this is the way that the pod needs to be set up, enforcing that. And templates allow you to do that by making sure that those devices stay within those parameters that you've defined. In addition to just making it easier when you do grow your fleet over time, which we hope everybody does. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I see a question in her statement in here from Anne that talks about security, some of the other things to some level, talking about rebooting. She knows that right now we can do a daily reboot or not, but one of the things she would like to do is have the ability to, select weekly, monthly. And this is where those feature requests come in. As we find out this data, talk to your Mersive rep, whether it be data visual or just email out to support at Mersive or sales at Mersive when you have these types
Yeah.
of things. This is important to us to be able to continue to grow the Mersive product. If you go out to our website, you'll see there's some new things that we're sneaking out there and talking about. And man, if you guys are at Infocom, I cannot wait to show you some of the exciting new things that are there. It's listed, but you're going to really get to see it. And that's my only teaser I'm going to give you. Please come see us at Infocom. Um, but we're going to continue to grow the Solstice platform, which means adding other additional capabilities to cloud. Knowing what you guys may need if you're current customers or if you're potentially new customers and what you'd like to see us add is also quite key as well. Raises, let's go and jump into QA. We've got a few questions
Yeah.
in here that we should probably touch on for sure. And then we'll make sure again if there's any questions we didn't hit, we'll make sure that we respond to you guys in the future. I see one here that's interesting. I don't know the specific answer, but I'll bring it up. Can the digital signage system support Rave emergency alert system?
Not directly. That's something that we could definitely look into. But using APIs, we've interfaced with a lot of other third-party systems like that of emergency alerting by setting up like a custom script or something like that. So yeah, the answer is not directly, but I think indirectly, we may be able to achieve that. So it's something we could certainly take a look at. Yep.
Yeah, and we've been asked, this is another feature request we've gotten, right? Like we've had a lot of people ask us, can you add other types of emergency response systems in there? So when people are in a class or in their conference space, they can get alerts should something happen. So that's a good one that's there.
Yeah.
Couple other questions that, yeah, and I just see Derek right in. CAP protocol integration would be great.
Yep.
Just to your point, Derek, that is something that we do get questions on often. So we are bringing that to product without a doubt, and we're letting them know that the market's asking for these types of things. So that's definitely helpful. I see a question from Dennis. Can you speak to the Mersive Pro? Where does it fit versus the Gen 3 pods other than dual 4K output? Stay tuned, man. We've got a lot
Yeah.
of good stuff coming. Most of the up-to-date information that we already have is on the website as it stands today. Again, we're going to have both platforms available. So as we look to Mersive Pro, and this is going to be our new generation of a product, look at this as a brand new generation. This is our next version of where Mersive is going. We're keeping on working with Solstice. We're keeping available, and we're going to continue to add additional capabilities and add features to that product as well over a period of time. Um, this is an interesting one actually from Greg. Is there a way to record a Solstice content, either in active learning or BYOD? Raises, how have we done that before? I know we've had a few places where we've taken the output, like one of the HDMI outputs, and then
Yeah.
sent it to some sort of a recording device. How have you seen that happen?
Yeah, so that's I think the way that you just indicated is what I've seen most often. We've had requests in the past, to be able to natively record through Solstice. It's something we haven't done because of the scope and breadth of third-party systems and what they can do, right? So they tend to be able to do a lot more. So it would be quite a heavy lift for us to like integrate that into the product. But that being said, I think there are maybe some other ways that we could look at integrating with some of those third-party systems. To Joel's point, where maybe we're passing it through more of a hardware-based approach rather than supporting it natively.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there's any other questions. There's a couple things in here. People have asked, can we get a visit to review the product once it's available? Definitely let us know what we can do in order to keep you guys up to speed. I know that Skylar, who's currently listed as Mersive, is working on getting a newsletter together to try to keep people up to date with everything that we're doing. I would recommend keep an eye on our website. If you haven't been there in a while, there's a lot of new stuff there. As we start to come out with new announcements, new product, make sure that you're subscribed to our mailing list. We will, without a doubt, give you guys more updates of some of the excitement that's still yet to come. For those of you that have a rep local, we'll definitely come out and see you, and we'll be reaching out. So, Aaron, good question, and we'll definitely be talking about that. And again, I see a couple other questions. What's pricing going to be, and some of these other things on new product? Stay tuned. I'm excited about it. We'll be announcing that soon. As soon as we're able to bring it to market, you're going to get in Canada. You will get your information on that specifically from Brian and Data Visual. You will see the U.S. Recommended MSRPs in the U.S. as well as soon as we get that available in that point in time. Raises, we're kind of at the end of the time here. If you guys have any other last minute questions, feel free to jump them in. You have any closing remarks you'd like to throw out?
I do. I think for those of you that might be new to Solstice and kind of what it does, it's an exciting product. It allows you to do quite a bit more than just kind of replacing the cable. For existing users, I look forward to again, this feedback's been great, growing the product and adding new features where it makes sense and going from there. Yeah, absolutely.
No, and I agree. What's interesting is when you walk into the room, and to me, I need things to just work, and for the ability for me to walk in and just share, that's key to me. We've had a lot of questions from people lately, and how to increase our utilization. If you have challenges like those things, reach out to us. We'll talk to you of what we've seen, and not necessarily what I would call best practice, but what we've seen other people do to increase utilization of the technology, and how are some of the other guys utilizing, whether it be the motion sensors or whatever the case may be, to tell people, hey, I'm here. This is how you share. This is how you work with the system. Reach out, let us know what we can do to help. Again, Data Visual can start some of that for you if you're up in Canada. Sales at mersive.com. We can help you down here. You're always welcome to connect with me directly, jcarroll at mersive.com, or Razes. What is your email?
Jraises at mersive.com.
Yeah.
Razes.
Absolutely. Find us both on LinkedIn if you'd like to as well. Last question I'll get to. Do I have demo or training videos? We absolutely do have demo and training videos, both from a demo standpoint. We have those available on YouTube, and we also have some on our website for training. If you want training from how to deploy and how to utilize that, you can go to mersive.com/training. You can get a free login. It will talk to you about how to set products up in cloud, how to deploy them, and give you some ideas on how to utilize the product. You also are able to get some information or documentation if you're looking for ways to help your team better know how to connect with a product. And there's some information in there that you also have available to you as well. Last thing, I'm a sales guy, so I've got to give you that pitch. We've got another webinar coming specifically that Mersive's doing next week. I'm excited because I get to host that one with Dave Hatz, longtime personal friend, known him over 20 years at this point. He's the VP of Machine Intelligence at CTI. And what we're going to be talking about there is the importance of security in AV. Maybe we'll sneak a little AI in there as well because Dave and I are geeks like that. But I'm excited about that. That's next week. If you guys are able to register, you can either scan this QR code here, or if you aren't able to scan the QR code, you can go to our website, go to LinkedIn. You'll find it everywhere to join. But let us know how we can stay closer with you guys. Let us know how we can stay connected. For those of you who did not get questions answered, if there's anything specific you want, please email me directly or email sales@mersive.com to get the answer. If you email me directly, just let me know where you saw us, and we'll be able to ensure that we can get any sort of information back to you guys. But other than that, I'll stay here for another minute. If there's a couple more questions, feel free to type them in. But I appreciate everybody attending today, and we look forward to seeing you guys out on the road soon.